Hi, thank you for listening to part 3 of Healing from Emotional and Verbal Abuse. Um, this has been a pretty exciting time, not just because of all the stuff that I've been receiving, like the emails and the phone calls and the text messages and messages, private message, all that stuff, which has just blown me away. But also because this has been pretty challenging to me. I'm so excited because if you know me, if you've been listening to the videos, you know that a good challenge, I am so excited about the growth. Like this just means that I'm going to grow more. So I'm excited. So thank you for helping me grow. I think today I'm going to share a little bit about anxiety and fear. So I'm going to include in the post, when this gets released, I'm going to include in the post a little information about anxiety and fear, some coping skills, because I notice right now this is mainly what I'm seeing on social media. And I get it, I really do. It's a scary time because it is incredibly unknown. It's not just unknown to a few people, it is unknown to everybody, including the experts. So this is one of those situations where we're not really sure where to put our trust. And so I notice that it brings out a lot of desire to be right, or a desire to just be able to claim something for the future. But we just don't get that option. So I'm going to give you some coping skills that hopefully will help. If not, you can reach out to me and I'll give you some other ones. However, now I'm going to start with the third part of getting healed from emotional and verbal abuse, and how healing came as far as being a parent, friend, and human being, coworker, all of those sorts of things. So as a parent, how I healed from being neglectful and emotionally distant was and has been a process in patience and discipline, which already is a thing. Like if you're a parent, you understand it's already a thing. I had to deal with my own emotions, okay, to be able to deal with the emotional needs of others, like my children. So I had to deal with my own emotions. Like, not only have I had to learn what emotions are, and like beyond anger or nothing, I had to learn that it's okay to express them. And then you have to learn how to express them. And listen, I'm just going to tell you, it does kind of suck as an adult to have to learn that kind of stuff, because everybody thinks you should have gotten it as a kid. So maybe some of you guys did. Like, I remember one time losing my temper at a car rental place and like losing my mind. And the guy's response was very calming and kind. And he just said, "It's okay. It's going to be okay." And I remember thinking, I'm the one who's not right in this. And I was really embarrassed after that. So I know the feeling of being embarrassed, that I didn't know how to control myself in that moment. So now I have to tell you, yeah, it is embarrassing, and it is tough, and it isn't very much fun. But the end result is I get to be the guy on the other side, telling someone it's going to be okay, because now I know how to deal with it. So just think of it that way. I mean, at some point you're going to get to be the person on the other side. So that's pretty exciting. If you stick with it, it's like from a physical perspective. If you're 600 pounds and you want to be 600 pounds overweight, or maybe it's just 600 pounds, that's a lot too, and you want to be a fitness instructor, you can be, but you're not going to be tomorrow. But eventually you can be. So I try to think of it from those terms. Like, I create goals that I know I can't be tomorrow, but I know that I can do a little bit every day, and that it does add up to something. And once you accomplish one thing, everything past that feels so much better. I hope I can give you some encouragement with that. I'm going to tell you that I can't figure out a way around having to deal with your own emotions. I had to deal with my own stuff first, because here's the thing. How do I help someone with something I don't understand myself. So how am I going to help my children deal with their emotions that they have towards me or for me or with anyone else if I don't know how to deal with my own emotions? Like, I really haven't found a way around that. Of course, I mean the feeling of being understood myself, or even believing that I should be understood or that my emotions deserve to be understood. As I mentioned before, going through dealing with emotions and what I deserved or should express takes time to work through. Like I said, it takes time, and that's okay. After working through that, then that allowed me to begin working on the discipline required to learn to not neglect my children. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I began to practice putting time aside for my children and including them in the struggles and overcomings of whatever the moment might have been. So I started, and listen, I homeschooled my kids before there was a quarantine. So I was around them all the time, which also may have added to the struggles that they had. Because being unhealed and homeschooling, probably not the best idea, but it happened. And when I started dealing with my own struggles, like I would tell my kids, I don't know how to teach you this. Like, I feel frustrated because I don't have the capacity to help you with this. And I would say, what do you think I could do? And we would go back and forth about ideas with that. And I think that's kind of where it started. Excuse me. Like if I was struggling with something, I would tell them I was having a hard time and talk to them about how I was feeling and what I thought would work. Because you know what? Kids are smart. And they apparently listen to good advice, even when we don't. Like if I notice parents a lot of times, like when we are calm and everything's going pretty well, at least for myself, I gave my kids wonderful advice. I just rarely followed that advice. I would tell them one thing and obviously do something else. So, but the interesting thing is that they did what I said. And if I would listen to them in those hard times, I noticed that kind of opened up the conversation. If I could let go of my pride or my embarrassment or whatever you want to call it, the thing that made me feel like a failure as a parent because my kids were struggling in any way. Now, I didn't tell my kids weird specifics about stuff. I told them how I felt so that we could learn how to talk about feelings, and they didn't feel neglected or emotionally disconnected by that. So I didn't give them, I didn't say, hey, mom and dad can't pay rent, or we're getting, one time, a long time ago, we did get evicted. And it was the worst experience, but we tried to protect our kids through the whole experience. I hope we did. They never talk about it, so I'm hoping that we did. But that was a very difficult time, and we tried not to include them in the difficulty that was a part of that. We still told them that we were going to take care of them to the best of our ability. So I know that during those kinds of things, that can be really difficult. And shout out to my mother-in-law because she helped us during that time. She let us stay there after we got evicted from our home. Now, what else? The other thing I did was allow them to feel how they were going to feel, even about the stuff I did to them. God, that was hard. Like you hearing from your children what you did and how they felt about it, even if your intention was good. I know that that's hard. Like, I wanted to explain myself every single time that they told me something. Well, that's not what I meant, or that's not how that's not how I meant it. That's not what I was trying to do. I stopped doing that, and I started letting them just express themselves and saying, I'm so sorry that it hurt you. I'm so sorry it made you feel that way. I'm not really good at that. I just started telling them, listen, I'm not great at these things. I'm still learning. Or maybe you can help me. Maybe we can learn it together. We've done that a few times as well, especially me and my oldest daughter. We look a lot of stuff up together. We both enjoy the Bible quite a bit. So we like to look up stuff in the Bible and learn it together so that we can ask each other's questions, or what do you think about this? Or what do you think about this? It has made a space for us to be friends, which is really nice. Like, I like being friends with my kids. Why not? Actually, that's one of the things we followed when we started to get healthy, is we started to try to raise our kids to be people that could be friends with other people, or be friends just in general, instead of just what we thought, because we didn't want to raise them the way that we had become, because we didn't have any friends. So, and no one really seemed, I mean, everybody really liked Mike, my husband, but I was not that like, so I didn't really want to raise them. I didn't want to raise them with the information I had. We learn good and bad choices together. My kids, especially my oldest, my Gracie, has told me that life is more difficult knowing so much of the truth, or working with the truth. But I told her that is a lie, because the truth doesn't have to be defended or controlled or monitored. It always proves itself. And we can have those kinds of conversations, and they trust me because, now I don't lie. This has helped them with some of the difficulties that came from my earlier issues. They are taking responsibility for their own lives and growing into who they are meant to be without me, without Mike. And that's a big deal, because then they can take responsibility for the choices they made now, instead of waiting till they're in their 40s, like some people, me. And those some people and me. This has helped me with some of the difficult, I already said that. I have discussed a little bit about my anger issues, so I would say this was and has been one of my most difficult lessons. I still sometimes struggle with anger, but you guys know that. I've mentioned that. Like the, oops, I wish I wouldn't have said that or done that kind of anger. It definitely doesn't happen as much as it used to, but still on occasion rears its ugly head. This took time and a lot of people loving me through it. I am excited. I can still say I have friends who have seen that side of me and still love me and still hang out with me, and including my children, including I'm still married. So, that's a big deal. And he likes me. So I'm going to say that. First thing I did was recognize the extent of my anger as much as I could, and deal with that. Like, I had to forgive myself, and that was hard, because I mainly felt so embarrassed and guilty about that. I made things right with those that I had affected as much as I knew about, and went from there. I began to read things on anger and do what people who had overcome anger were doing. It took daily practice and a lot of apologies because I wasn't great at it, and being grateful for any change. So I kept a journal. You got to journal, like you got to write it down, because a year from now, if you look back to where you were a year ago, you'll find out now you're so much further than you thought you could be. I began to read things on anger and do what people who had overcome anger were doing. Like, I actually did it. It took daily practice, a lot of apologies. I said that because I wasn't great at it. And I had to be careful what I watched. Politics was a big one. Really, anything that got me worked up had to take a backseat to my healing. You may ask, it's not good to be uninformed. But I would say to that, how did it help me being informed? Like, how does it help? How did it help me knowing politically what was going on as far as my anger was concerned? And what was I doing to make any type of change? Nothing. So I'll go ahead and tell you, not being informed doesn't matter at all if you are doing nothing with it, except getting really mad and telling everybody else how mad you are. Because what kind of change was that making? It was doing nothing. Now I actually get to do something because I can keep my cool, because I can talk to people about things, because I don't take offense to questions, because I don't have to own everything. If people ask me, why did you do it that way? I can tell you. I don't need you to like how I do it that way or not like it. I can have that conversation now. I also didn't mind baby steps. So if I needed to listen to music loudly in my car because the car was a great place to release anger, or talk to the phone with people that I would never act that way in front of, I found whatever I could do to keep myself accountable to letting go of anger. When I wanted to yell at someone or exert myself in an aggressive way, I had notes everywhere that said things like, is this what you want to say? Or do they deserve this? Or should you just walk away right now? It's really funny. They really were everywhere. It's ridiculous. Stuff like that to help me stay accountable to the goal of having healthy anger. And by the way, there is such a thing as a healthy anger. The way you know about that is that you are in control of it and it's not filled with regret. We'll talk more about that later too. As far as healing in terms of friend, this one was a little easier concept. I started with treat others as I wanted to be treated. I mentioned that before. Easy, and it gets the job done. Of course, things can get more complicated than that, but it seems that I learned from each opportunity of friendship. And this ties back into me learning to not care what people think, so that I could find friendship or care somewhere in there. Like, I needed to let go of what people thought so that I could care about them. I'm saying like a lot, I'm sorry. Like, just finding something to connect with. And here's the funny thing. I found that I can be friends to people who aren't really friends to me. I really do try, and I do mean try, to find a way to be friends with everyone. So I call everyone friend, because it's no loss to me if they don't call me friend back. And on that note, we're going to stop there. And I'm going to ask you to share. Please share. Tell me about your stories of being healed from anxiety. Let's talk about that a little bit. We are going to start this is a big one. We're going to start on spiritual abuse, which nowadays, or back in the day, whenever, spiritual abuse is just another word for the religion. How it affected me and how I healed from it. We're going to start that this Wednesday, and we'll take that as long as it needs to be taken. And I do have a few people that are going to speak up about spiritual abuse, because a lot of people have been affected by it. And I notice that not a lot of people talk about it. So we're going to talk about it for as long as we need to. And I'll continue to be as open and as honest as possible to share in this process of healing. And thank you for listening and helping me and others pay it forward. Thank you.